basically what happened was last year I was like really, really struggling with shame. Now it's not as present for me because I kind of, yeah, I just like sat with it for a long time. And but yeah, I was like really struggling with it. And I basically came to this point where I was like, wow, I have so many things right now that I wish I could share with someone, but there's no one that I actually feel comfortable enough with to share them with right now, but I still want them to be witnessed. So I just decided to post this anonymous form so that people would send their stuff as well, and I would put my things there and then just like post everything anonymously so that
Oh,
people see what's there. And yeah, that worked pretty well. Like it went kind of viral and people posted a lot of their things and then I started sharing them on Twitter and then people started responding really well. They started replying like, "Oh my God, I also struggle with this, and this is what I did to deal with it." And a lot of people saying that it just felt really healing to see both that, their things were being received lovingly and it was not that bad, and also seeing other people sharing the same things they were ashamed of, because it turns out that a lot of their shame was about thinking they were the only ones with that, and suddenly it's this whole shared thing. And my intention with the book was to turn that into something that people can have always in their house and they can grab. And it's also so like they remember that, oh yeah, I'm not alone in these all these things I'm ashamed of, and people have their own flavors of shame, and it's something that is like shared by many humans. And I also wanted to add another layer to it, which is it's kind of like a fairy tale illustrated children's story, but for adults about overcoming shame and just
oh, that's
observing
a
Glenn.
sad face.
I know. It's like so many emotions flowing all the time, and just
Yeah.
like every moment is different, and she doesn't hold on to it, and she
Yeah,
just keeps
yeah.
going. Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
emotion capacitor has like a 2 or 3 second reservoir, maybe.
Yeah. I'm so jealous. Yeah, and that's also kind of what the last part of the book is, the shame book. It's like there's these characters and shame is actually a character, and then all these shameful thoughts from people are these little monsters that shame creates, and he releases them onto the world, and they look cool, and they attach to their mind, and then people obsess over them, and they're taken to shame's castle. But actually, they don't have to be stuck. And Shame is not such a bad guy in the end, and he changes a lot into other different things until he's released. Yeah, that's more or less. That's more or
Oh,
less it. Oi, oi, oi.
oh, things are very hard. Very hard
Yeah,
when you're small and
yeah,
overwhelmed.
yeah.
You're still
And there
muted,
you
Malcolm.
go.
I think that what might make sense is for me to put her in a wrap and join this Zoom call from my phone and go for a walk.
Sounds
So
great to
I'm
me.
gonna do that.
Mm.
Okay. Well, we can drag it back to shame and sin and all of that. All those lovely, favorite, pleasant topics. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So a way that I've been summarizing this stuff in my head for the last several months is um, that, as far as I can tell, shame is a strategic mislabeling of pain.
Hmm.
Um, Often the strategy is defunct, and so you can just correct your mislabeling and then the entire thing dissolves. The strategic part is really important because, like, so Malcolm and I did a bunch of sessions where we were working with people one on one to try to help them. Um, we weren't calling it shame at the time. We were, and I'm not sure shame is the right summary, but it's like it's pretty close, and it's the 80-20 on trying to summarize what we were doing. Um, we were trying to help people unwind this particular structure that we were seeing appearing in many people. Sometimes, usually one on one, but we did it with. We've done a handful of sessions with a group where we tried to bring the group together and focus in circling style on noticing both the mental, emotional move that is involved in getting twisted up, and in untwisting it. Um, One of the weird things that we kept bumping into is that some people will um, they'll do various moves to protect the twisting. They'll Some of them will insist that it serves a good purpose. Some of them will insist it's not there when it obviously is. Um, some of them will insist that they deserve it, uh, which is a particularly self-referential one. I should feel ashamed because I am shameful. Like, um, so there's some other stuff that uh, that particularly I'd been staring at. This transition happened right around the time that Gwen was born. So like we were doing this stuff right up until Gwen was born, and then I carried on for a little bit afterwards. Um, but yeah, so the move of original spin and the unwinding spin is about uh, uh, undoing the mislabeling of pain. It doesn't address the strategic part, but it still is surprisingly effective because it often turns out that the strategy is, because I am a small child surrounded by adults who are pressing me in a particular way, I have to navigate this situation in this particular fashion. And then that became a habit. And since you're no longer a child, it turns out if you just stop doing that, you're fine.
Wow, I really like this. Yeah, the mislabeling of shame, mislabeling of pain as shame is really interesting. I never thought about it this way. And then,
I can give a simple example that's also really cool.
mhm.
So it's um, like I'll like get distracted maybe on my computer, maybe while meditating, maybe like in some other context, and then I have this moment where I realize I've been distracted, and it sucks to notice. Like there's an experience of that of it sucks to have been in this sort of mindless state, like, and kind of um, whether that's just I'm meditating and I'm not present, or whether that's like I'm scattered on my computer doing random shit that's not what I feel really actually good to do. So there's a feeling of like, ugh, that feels bad. But then the way that by default I would sort of orient to this is I would kind of be like, ah, man, I did a bad, I shouldn't have done that kind of energy. And I had already done a fair bit of work to kind of stop using the word should in my thinking and stuff like that. But there was still this kind of energy that was like directed at myself. Um, but when I instead just allowed myself to be like, no, it sucks for me. Like, I don't need to externalize someone else telling me I did something wrong in order to like want to change this. I already want to change it because I don't like it. And like seeing it as like having this external sense of wrongness was like totally confusing myself about sort of where was the problem coming from. It's like nobody else is judging me for having just gotten distracted for a moment. And even if they are, like, that's not why it matters to me.
Yeah. And sometimes, like when I notice stuff like that, and I'm going, oh man, I got distracted for a second. God, part of what I'm like, for me, often what that's connected to is the reason I'm trying to avoid getting distracted is because I'm trying to solve a social problem. Along the lines of when I've gotten distracted before, in some cases, bad things happened or I missed something and that turned out to be like painful. So what I'm actually experiencing is the fear of others' reactions to me, or the fear of not navigating something that was dangerous or painful. Um, and so that ends up being connected there, but I'm short circuiting that by labeling it as there is something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I like this that there's a social aspect to it, and I'm thinking about this in terms of like, for example, people telling me what are the things that they are ashamed of. So like these things that I actually wrote down, and that in the book they are like these little monsters that have words to them and that attach to people, but actually behind that there's just like there's the shame or whatever like the essence of that feeling is. And I think like a lot of the attaching to the thought instead of to the feeling is about this social part that is like, oh, if I need to be paying attention to the content of this, because if I do obsess about it, then I'm aware of it, and I'm gonna make sure that at least I'm safe socially, because I'm not gonna be ostracized because I'm doing a bad thing, because I'm aware of it. And it's like yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
it's I'll punish myself first so no one else will punish me.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
Safe somehow. Like, oof, at least I'm obsessing about this. Like, I've got it.
Yeah, I mean, you can control something like how much damage you're inflicting on yourself that way
Mm,
too. Like you can
mhm.
more precisely calibrate, am I signaling properly relative to how much damage I'm inflicting
Yeah.
on me? Whereas if somebody
Oh,
is beating
yeah.
you, then it's like, well, they don't have the internal sensors to know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, yeah. That's really juicy.
yeah,
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm wondering what is like. I would like to turn this, yeah, into something that, yeah, that can be like understood and absorbed
yeah. I mean,
effectively.
the actual move of unwinding spin is it's almost mechanical. A lot of the difficulty is in navigating the habits that people have around maintaining
Mm-hmm.
it, but the thing itself is very simple. Um,
Mm-hmm.
original spin,
Mm-hmm.
is the is the specific act of reframing the pain so that you're modeling the problem as being yourself, like that there is some property of you that has to change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it creates a paradox because are you the one doing the fixing, or are you the one being fixed? Are you the subject or are you the object?
Yeah.
And, um, so that paradox is a feature if you are strategically mislabeling your pain, because it prevents you from being able to notice that you are mislabeling it because your mind gets caught up in the paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the move itself is very simple. It's just reframing yourself as the problem, right?
Yeah.
Or as the source of the problem. And therefore, implicitly, the method of solving the problem is to change yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the twist.
Yeah.
Um, unwinding spin is just undoing that. If the most common prompt that I found to be helpful, and that often helps people when they aren't protecting this move inherently, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, is um, describe the problem under the rule that you are not allowed to be part of the problem.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, that's actually very
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah. And that's like probably a more actionable instruction than the like reply tweet that I gave under your question about how to deal with shame, where I just said something like shift from it being a problem that you are to a problem that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Although, yeah, that phrasing is tricky for lots of reasons. Um, Including that the problem I have is totally capable of getting bound up in my identity. Like, oh, I have this problem where
In practice, I have found that most of the time, I haven't. I wish I had a way of keeping good statistics on this so I could justify. Pretty darn sure it's over half. So I think most is justified. It might be almost all, but I don't know. Subjective impression. Um, that as long as someone is um, this, I want psychogebra. The statement is very simple, but it's going to take a lot of English words. Um, there's uh, there is a type of thing that happens when people defend their spin. If they're not doing that, I find that they pretty naturally get the spirit of the instruction.
Mm.
It's often very striking. If you take something like, oh man, yeah, I just keep screwing up. And like, I'm supposed to be, like, I keep not keeping up with the people who are pinging me with all these messages, interested in the things that I'm doing. And I really should get back to them, but it's so overwhelming. Like, even though it's not clear anywhere in there where I have named that I am the problem, it has a very particular twisting feeling to it that is, oh, that's spin. If I then just look at it and say, what is the problem? The problem is there is more coming in than I have the ability to respond to. And I am scared of what people are going to do in response to my not
Hmm.
responding.
Mm.
It's just breath. It's like, yeah, that is the problem. And it's
Yeah.
very straightforward. It's a very clear sensation once you land on it, is my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this, like all of this you guys have been describing and all these different ways of pointing at it is also making it much clearer for me what is the thing. And uh yeah, it's like it's not, it's just you're not part of it. And once you can see the thing separate from yourself, as and you see yourself as someone that can fix it, yeah, without the shame. And I guess the shame is just to put that on yourself and like, oh, this is like I'm the problem, or like the problem is in me. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that Michael and I haven't talked about directly at all yet. Michael, were you there for when Divya was talking about her IFS self stuff at the last talk?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember when she described feeling ashamed about like noticing that people seem to be stuck in like pre-personal patterns
Yeah. I mean, you might
or something?
remember uh, um, yeah, I was a little confused about what exactly her model was, but you might remember that I mentioned how I found, like, as Anna spoke up about what her model of shame was, and I expressed, huh, that's
Mm-hmm.
weird. But like, I think by that model, you'd say that the reason I don't have the experience of shame of that type is because I'm just always ashamed. And Jack and Anna both said, yeah, and I found that very annoying. Um,
Right.
but yeah, were you there for that part?
Yeah, yeah, I remember it.
Okay, okay,
I
yeah.
had
So I
slightly
don't,
forgotten it until you started saying it, and then I remembered halfway.
yeah. So I don't remember Divya's model, but I remember that part.
Yeah, the thing I mostly remember was maybe Anna's model of like shame being something like things you don't know how to like integrate into the social space. And I guess I'm curious about like obviously there's some connection between that and the kind of shame that we've been working with in the context of original spin. But like to what extent are they like the same or total or sort of like two totally different like manifestations of something that happens to have one little thing in common? Yeah. Because I feel like
Hmm.
a lot of the things that Sylvia is sharing, I'm like, why are those shameful? And I think that part of why they're shameful or whatever is that they're doing the original spin move. But I
Mm.
also wonder if like part of why it's shameful is this feeling of I can't talk about it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, how are those related? Like,
Well, I mean, under the model that the strategic mislabeling of pain is in order to hide. um, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like if there's something that you don't know how to integrate into social context, and then you want to do some things to make it better hidden in the meantime.
Hmm. Is that why you do the spin? Is it to hide?
That's my current model. Like we're
Yeah.
more sure that
I think there's
that
more
spin.
there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's something. I oh, I'm right on the edge of being able to say it. Then hiding. So, like, suppose that I. Oh, okay. So, I think there's a. I think the piece that links the two things is uh, something like, is it okay to have the problem that I have, or do I need to somehow contort myself into something? I'm not quite sure what the words are there, but I'm thinking about both, like when I like when you and I were doing some of the original unwinding spin type moves with each other, often what that would involve was actually just a kind of like empathizing with how difficult it would be to have the problem that the other person had. Like it was kind of like, wow, that sounds really tough. Where someone was expecting a sort of doubling down on like, yeah, man, you gotta get your shit together, kind of like or something. Um uh
Yeah.
and there's thing about like, welcoming the problem to the social space that is part of one aspect of how unwinding spin can work. Like you can do it alone, but if you do it with other people, it has a bit of a feeling of like like love for the person and like a kind of like wow, and you're dealing with that problem. You a like uh, a valid person like are dealing with this problem that you actually have. Um, Whereas there's some sort of expectation of like part of what's confusing is the problem both gets made part of your identity and also gets disowned at the same time. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm confused about this, but I feel like I'm almost there. I've like I've got all the pieces in front of me. I just don't know how to put them together.
Just
Maybe
making a
here.
quick
So
note.
here's the way to put it, right? So like, do you want a sec?
Nope. Go ahead.
Cool. So like, if I take an example that I dealt with, well, sort of dealt with. When I was a kid, I used to wet the bed like for like a number of years longer than many kids did, and I was ashamed about this. Most of my friends didn't know, but it meant that I couldn't like have a spontaneous sleepover at another friend's house because I needed like special nighttime like underwear type stuff. And I really didn't want my friends to know. Um, and like because of how I don't know how they would think of me or something. I guess like okay, I can see how that's like there's sort of a social problem that's there, right? But like I think there's a way in which if I had gotten like you know I'd somehow interacted with uh Michael Smith circa 2025 and he'd been like check out this unwinding original spin thing. Look, you can defuse your like in that stuff. It's sort of kind of aloneness that I would have felt
Malcolm.
if I couldn't
Malcolm.
talk about it. But yeah,
You're cutting in and out enough all of a sudden that it's really hard to understand you.
gotcha. I have just come back into the Wi-Fi zone. That might be why.
Yeah, okay. You're now understandable. I heard talking to Michael Smith circa 2025, original spin, and then glitching. Now I can hear you behind me, but I don't hear you through Zoom at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, weird. Um, so, oh,
I mean, if you want to, you could come in here.
that would work. Uh, yeah, it seems kind of funny. Well, then I can't. I'll come in for as long as it takes me to say my thing.
Oh my God! What?
The man from behind the curtain. Hold on, let me change how audio works. So anyway, so I need to put this little baby to sleep in like 5 minutes. But the thing I was going to say was, yeah, so I think if I imagine like me of age, I don't know, 8 years old, who's still wetting the bed, like talks with Michael Smith 2025, and Michael Smith 2025 is like, check out this unwinding spin thing. The bedwetting is a problem you have, not a problem you are. There's still a deep pain to the part where I can't talk about it with everybody. Yeah. But as I was working through this out loud, which you guys maybe missed, I found myself realizing, like, no, that shame is just mislabeled aloneness.
Mm.
Like, it also doesn't feel right to call it shame. It's just a sadness and disconnection and alone. Like, it's, but it doesn't do, like, and so I think that, like, to Anna's point, the thing that's getting called shame there is still making the original spin error in that it wants to call itself shame. And if it weren't, it would just say, I feel alone. Yeah. And I feel disconnected. I feel whatever. Yeah, I was struck by, I think maybe a common unifying thing, not universal, but very common, is that it might be specifically what is being mislabeled is fear of punishment for having the problem you do. Oh, whoa. Which, then if you self-punish for having the problem you do, like, does that, like, even create itself? Like, that might be the simplest case and the one that unwinds almost instantly if there's nothing else holding it together. I don't know. It's not clear to me why self-punishment would be helpful there. My model is still that the reason why you would do any kind of move like that is to you're still trying to structure your psyche so that you are masking that you have the problem. But yeah, no. In this case, you're not hiding it from yourself. You're not hiding the fact that you have the problem from yourself. But you are hiding the fact that your concern is people's reactions. It's a little bit like saying, yeah, I know this is bad. Almost like you don't have to tell me. I already know it's terrible. Please have pity on me rather than trying to beat me. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Something there about like distributed status calculations or something. Yeah. New territory here. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like I clarified something by noting that just like, no, a bunch of the thing that's getting called shame, and I think this is especially relevant to your point, is more like mislabeled aloneness, or as you know, mislabeled fear of like punishment for having that problem. Which is, I think, a different thing than the actual mislabeling of the pain of having the problem. Like, the problem might be causing you problems as well, but the thing that you might mostly be mislabeling might be the fear of punishment for having the problem. Yeah, I mean, if your friends thought it was really awesome and cool that you wet your bed, they're going, man, that's really cool. Like, you can keep holding on to it that age? Wow, man. Like, I'd be like, you guys are confused, but okay, right? Like, it would stop feeling shameful and just feel more like, you guys have bad values? I'd like to solve this problem. It's kind of annoying. Try to teach you how to do it, I guess.
Huh. Yeah, I wonder if like one if there's other things that might be mislabeled as shame, like such as aloneness or fear of punishment, and if this is like for all things that are shameful, or if it's just for some of the cases, and if there are also other examples, and also how yeah this like oh if actually my friends thought it's actually cool that I wet my bed, then I wouldn't be ashamed anymore. It's also like connected to the thing that you were saying before, Malcolm. Was it? Oh yeah, just like being empathetic with the person that like, oh, you have this this problem. That's really hard. It's like another way of someone else seeing, looking at the thing and giving you a different perspective than you had before. Either, oh, that's actually cool, or oh, actually that's really hard, and you're not fucked up for having that. You're just actually strong for even being able to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It occurs to me it doesn't even have to be a problem. Like, if you have an anticipation um, that you're going to like that people are going to be like disgusted or make fun of you for your eye color. Like your eye color is not a problem except that you anticipate other people are going to make it a problem for you.
Yeah.
Um, so in this case, the mislabeling, it becomes, oh God, I'm so ashamed of my eyes. But what you're actually hurting about is your anticipation of other people's judgment of your eyes. Your eye color is not a problem for you until people make it a problem.
Right, and then there is a real problem that you have.
Yes, but the problem is not your eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Interactive. Yeah. So I think yeah, when we talk about pain being mislabeled or problem being mislabeled, yeah, we could get some cool Drosta effect going.
Whoa.
It gave up.
Oh wait,
no,
we've got to talk.
It knows. There we
okay.
Whoa.
As long as Sílvia doesn't talk, then it does.
Whoa!
It's actually pretty funny watching it switch.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so trippy.
Oh yeah. So I think.
Oh yeah.
I think pain.
Yeah, you bought
like
the chair.
Pain can imply a kind of narrowness to the thing getting mislabeled. Problem seems better because it includes like social problems.
Well, is there an example of shame or spin, either one, to the extent that they're different, that is not about mislabeling a social problem?
Right. So I guess there's a question of, is any form of shame actually a mislabeling of a non-social problem? Is kind of the question there.
Right. Yeah, when I think of anything along the lines of, I am thirsty, I can be ashamed of the thirst, but the reason I would be ashamed of the thirst is because of some idea of how it relates to other people's judgments or something.
It does seem, I mean, and that makes sense given everybody, even people who haven't thought about this very long, thinks of shame as a social phenomenon. Like it's so that would make sense. I think the edge cases where I'm like ashamed of getting distracted mid-meditation is pretty interesting because like nobody else can tell that specific instance happened, but it like reminds me of this way in which I'm not good enough at paying attention, which other people care about and will judge me for later, right? Like there's it kind of plugs into that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take these keys out of my pocket while I remember. Anyway, I probably should take Gwen and put her to sleep. So I'm inclined to do that. I can stay on this call. I just gotta walk back down and shift off Wi-Fi and stuff.
Bye, Gwen.
Also, we are recording, yeah? Because this is dope.
Yes. Right. As far as I know.
Yep.
Nothing to see back there. No picture.
Another question that comes to mind that feels useful is, what is actually bothering you? Like if you're just noticing and investigating like what is the thing that is causing pain or discomfort, and then you're like, oh, is that I'm wetting my bed? No, is it that other people are gonna be upset with me? No, is it that I'm gonna be alone because other people are gonna be upset with me? Is it that it changes my own image of myself to myself and it's not social at all? And maybe that also helps
Yeah.
to look
Al-
into the actual thing.
Although I, mm, I think there is a good case to be made that self-image is social.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
as far as I can tell, when I look at Gwen, like she's becoming a social being, but I think that she has no conception of herself yet.
Mm,
I think she sees other people and she knows that people are a different kind of thing than a book, or a
hmm
rattle or a stick. But I don't think that she has a sense of herself as being like these beings.
mm,
There's
mm,
just experiencing.
hmm
There's a pretty dramatic shift that happens right around age 4 with getting a theory of mind.
hmm
Up to that point, they can't imagine other people having a state of knowledge that is different from what they know. But it's not that
Yeah.
they have a theory that everyone knows the same thing they do. It's that they don't have a distinction between knowledge. They don't have a concept of a knower.
Yeah.
There's just knowing that happens. And there's a
Yeah.
snap that happens when they get, oh, they have a perspective and I have a perspective and theirs is different from mine.
hmm
It's at that point that they start learning that lying is possible and can sometimes create the things that they want.
hmm
Um,
hmm
so I'm under the impression that the key thing that happens there is that they learn how to model themselves the way that they're modeling other people.
hmm
I think that is the seed of the self image.
Yeah. 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 I think, yeah. So I think it's always social, probably. Shame.
Yeah, but I think Malcolm's case about being ashamed about losing concentration in meditation is a really interesting special case. Um,
Yeah.
because there, I think the only medium, approximately the only medium is, well, okay, so there are two media I can see that where that could be a problem. One is the self-image hit. Like, I'm trying to do this thing and I failed. Uh, I am a failure in this, or I'm not good at this, or whatever. And there's some sort of like I screwed up, or I don't know how he narrates it, but like but all of that is hitting like the self-image and wanting that to be different.
hmm
And then there's another pathway that I can see, um, which is if the ability to keep focus is something that you need later, that you need to be able to rely on when you're interacting with other people, then failing at that gets connected to the anticipation of the social difficulty
hmm
later on. Um,
As in, you need it as as a skill to talk to other people.
right, right.
Yeah.
Like it's a type of frustration I would imagine, uh, like a psychopath, like
Yeah.
somebody with a personality rearrangement. I think they would still experience the second one.
Yeah.
Unclear whether they would experience the first.
Yeah. So like a shame for not having that necessary skill to have an interaction that is as good as could be later in the future.
Right, like you're anticipating that it's going to create a problem for you.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I like if you privately start getting tremors,
Yeah.
like, and sure nobody knows
hmm
yet.
Yeah.
Maybe you even know that nobody is going to give you a whole bunch of challenge about it, but it's still like you can't.
Yeah.
Like, how do
Yeah.
you interact with physical objects that way?
Yeah.
That can be a sort of frustration and a dread and an anticipation and stuff like that.
hmm
Oh, it's interesting. I think when I imagine that, I imagine many people experiencing shame if they run into a problem like that. Uh, unless if they knew that everybody else would be totally fine with it, maybe like sympathetic to like, oh, that sucks. I'm sorry you're going through that. But you're coming to the party on Thursday, right? Or whatever. It's so like,
I don't know if I think I would probably still feel ashamed, even if everyone was like, "Oh, that sucks to have as a problem." It's just a different kind of shame. It's not I'm not ashamed because other people are gonna see me like as a bad person. It's more because they're gonna see me as being weaker or something. And that's
mm, right. So sort of the threat to uh, how you anticipate being seen and what
yeah.
it
Yeah,
implies
yeah.
about your position in the social network and what you can rely on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems right to me too. I think that the meditation example, like if we go back to the bedwetting example, it's like, okay, yeah, definitely some of the moments when the shame was most intense were like moments when, a friend was inviting me to stay over like spontaneously after I'd been at their house in the afternoon or for dinner. And I was like, oh, I really want to, but I have this secret problem I can't talk about. Like that was probably the more acute moment, but also like any moment of waking up and the bed is, whatever hasn't gone the right way, even like before anybody else has noticed, right? It's like there's like a feeling of, yeah, some sort of shame or something
Mm,
there, I think.
mm,
Not just, oh wow, this is inconvenient, we got to clean this up, but wish, yeah, feeling a social problem around it,
yeah.
even though nobody else is there yet. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, I wonder if the meditation thing is also social in a sense that like I this feels shameful because I know that other people can do it without getting distracted, and therefore that's kind of like a goal that I aim towards. And even if people don't know how you're doing, you're comparing yourself to other people, and therefore it's social in that way.
Mhm.
mm,
Like there's something wrong with me. I'm falling
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah, in in psychocybernetics, the guy who wrote it, whose name I can't think of, mentions how uh, like there are supposedly various studies that like this is all in psychology and of questionable nature, but anyway, it's suggestive um, that uh, that when they would give various students or subjects some set of tasks to accomplish, um, and the tasks are like from previous run throughs, they know it would take something like 12 minutes to on average for to go through, but they ring a bell about 3 minutes in, saying that's the average, just so that people know that's roughly how long.
just trolling people.
Right, basically just trolling them. They would end up taking vastly longer as a result. Um,
Mhm.
uh, and like report a lot of discomfort in the process.
Huh.
I mean, not
Yeah.
necessarily reporting, but like after like checking in with them, saying, "What was that experience like?" Man, I just felt like an idiot because like I didn't.
I wonder, it just occurred to me, there's two different versions of this that I could imagine, um, or two different reasons why this effect might be the case that I could kind of imagine. One of which is like it literally is just a blow to their self-image that they have not achieved it already in the average amount of time, especially since they're like
Mm.
usually overperformers. And then their new self-image is not as capable. Like that's sort of like the pure psychocybernetics interpretation. But I hadn't actually had that interpretation until you retold the thing just now. I was thinking of it more just in terms of like they got stressed out, and because they were stressed, they couldn't complete it as well. I imagine there's ways to like sort of disambiguate between those two, but
Yeah, I mean, if you feed people a bunch of coffee, like that's not going to typically affect their like just as an example of the type of thing where you could induce stress and then
well,
see
coffee
how.
also induces focus or whatever too, though. You might need like adrenaline or something instead. They have tried
Yeah,
experiments with giving people adrenaline, but anyway.
yeah. If they give them enough, I bet they would have trouble completing a lot of tasks. They're like,
Sure.
Oh, my fine motor coordination is off. Suddenly I'm bad at writing. I can't complete this writing task. Because we can drop people's IQ by giving them mittens.
Hmm.
I'm having a lot of fun exploring these ideas and sort of and playing with them a bit. I want to check in to see how relevant this is to what you're playing with, Sylvia.
It is, yeah, I'm kind of just right now also looking like expanding my net to catch things like as broadly as I can. And I'm still in the gathering mode of ideas. So yeah, this is pretty useful.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying it a lot. And I'm taking a lot of notes and just like little points to kind of come back to later and connect them and play with them. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I think might be worth bringing in here at this point is, like earlier I mentioned, current best model is that shame is strategic mislabeling of pain. The strategic part, when I started digging into that, reflecting on it, and then running a couple of informal experiments on, produced a really interesting result. With like one articulation I had of this, I wrote a less wrong article about this called the hostile telepaths problem. The gist of it being that if you're anticipating that, or if you believe that you are interacting with somebody who can kind of read your internal states and that you expect will make your situation worse based on what they find, this means you have to do something to deal with that. And I think that shame is one solution in some of these cases. But another one is basically mind shielding. In that article, I referred to it as occlumency in reference to Harry Potter. The deal being something like if you trust that something being conscious does not mean that it necessarily becomes accessible to a hostile telepath, then it becomes safe to switch to the strategy of shielding your mind rather than sort of fragmenting your awareness of whatever it is that you want to keep away from the hostile telepath. So there have been a few cases where I've noticed some of these structures and been able to invite somebody to not have to admit to anyone, including me, what occurs to them if there is something there. And there's a way to kind of like invite them into that space. And I do this move in myself too fairly often. And often a lot of the mental fog and the self-beratement and so on just sort of evaporates, and they can kind of go, oh, I guess maybe I do. Oh, I do. Oh, that's the thing. Right? There's a kind of clarity that comes once there's sort of an internal promise of, by default, I will not reveal this. I'm just going to look at it and see it. I don't think that particular move works on a bunch of cases of shame where somebody feels acutely aware of what their problem is, such as with bedwetting. But there is an issue of something like the related problem here is if there's an attempted strategy there, which is if I had to impose the hostile telepath read on the situation, the problem in the bedwetting situation is if you look at it going, gosh, I sure hope that other people don't find out. How am I going to deal with this? Okay, well, I guess I could do, like, if it's kind of that sort of calm tone inside, that can seem sort of like, well, do you realize this is a problem? So if, so being able to go, oh God, I am, like, I don't, like, I may not, I'm making this up on the spot, so I'm noticing some glitches in it. But I'll flesh out what I'm seeing that
Hmm.
might be coherentable. Um, if the real problem is other people are going to make a big deal out of this, and that's a social problem, and I want to deal with that, but the way that you anticipate their judgment is that they want you to know that the thing itself is bad, then what you can do is mislabel your fear of them as I am horrified by this problem. And then the issue that you're running into there is that because you're dealing with a hostile telepath problem, you can't admit to yourself that that is what you're doing.
Hmm.
But if you can land clearly on, look, I can, if I can shield the fact that I'm like, I don't like how it smells. I don't like having this situation. But the problem I have is the anticipation of judgment. That's the problem I need to solve. If I know I can consciously be aware of that and not have to reveal it, then it becomes easier to think about.
Hmm.
Like that's the occlumency shift.
Not having to reveal that this is the actual problem that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to tell them, I like this is kind of annoying, but the real issue is you guys making a big deal out of it. Like that's
Hmm. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like if I don't
Yeah.
have to do that, then it becomes easier for me to become conscious of that that's
Hmm.
the real problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
In some cases. I don't know whether it applies to this particular one.
Yeah.
Yeah, existential kink I think does this a whole lot.
Mm.
It's doing a whole lot of doing a frame shift on the nature of the problemness so that you are risking admitting to yourself that actually secretly you really like something here that you are adamantly consciously claiming to dislike. So it sort of gives you an
Hmm.
opportunity um, to flip the polarity on a bunch of how you're viewing the problem. I don't think it's doing
And
the
gives you an
occlumency
opportunity
part.
to acknowledge. I think in practice, it probably does some occlumency in the sense that, like, the way that you acknowledge it doesn't lend itself towards, like, um, uh, telling lots of people necessarily. Like, you might end up telling your other existential kink friends, but you're kind of like, ooh, I got this kinky secret now that I'm not going to tell people. Like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. What is a situation where this would be helpful? Do you have any examples?
Of the occlumency shift.
Hmm.
Um, I do have examples. Any currently running ones I can't describe for what I hope are obvious reasons. So let me see if I can remember some of the past ones. Um, ah, um, so one of my coaching clients was getting knotted up with, by my read, a lot of shame, original spin type stuff around how she found a particular sort of conversation with her mother really difficult and frustrating. Um, but she didn't know how to get out of these conversations, and it just felt and she felt bad about the fact that she wasn't able to, and just like lots of twisting on many different layers. Um, and uh, I had I had invited her into like I asked her, well, what if you just lie and say that you need to like there's a call that you need to take, like, um, and she had this sort of like, but I can't lie. That would be wrong. And saying, okay, so you're instead gonna go through all of this nodding. Like this isn't like so in exploring that a little bit and going, well, what's with the like what is the thing that you're trying to protect there? What is it that you're looking for? By saying like I can't lie either. Um, there was a kind of a almost like a sheepishness, like the fact that she, unfortunately, there's a lot more context in the background than I think is relevant. I'm relying on a bunch of it, so let me see if I can simplify this a bit. Um, so there was a moment where I had invited her to notice that she was already lying to her mother by pretending that she was engaged in the conversation.
Mm.
And she felt like she almost got really knotted up about that. And I was just invited, okay, so what if you just like lie about this? Uh, and I'm noticing. Okay, I'm sorry. This is maybe not the sharpest example. Let me see. I think there's another iteration. Like this one ended up being kind of spaghetti. Sorry, this is going to take me a moment. Just let me
Yeah, no, that's
unwind
fine.
this. Uh, right. So I think maybe a clear spot. Actually, it's in that same discussion with the same person in that same situation. Um, like she was getting knotted up, and then part of what I was modeling there was that she needed to signal to me that she is not the type of person who lies. And
Oh.
so as she was getting all knotted up in this, I just sort of looked at her and saying, "Look, I want to invite you into something where I want you to just like play with an experiment here, and then I want you to hide the result from me. If you have to share anything with me about what you experience, I want you to lie to me. Right? I want you to not tell me what you notice, okay?" Right? And that made her laugh a little bit and saying, "Okay, so um, uh, what what is important to you about me thinking you tell the truth?" Right? Uh, there was a there was a kind of um, there was some other context that made it a little clearer. I think that step on its own would not work for most people, but
Mm.
but because there had been a sort of look, you're not allowed to tell me the result of this. I just want you to consider reflecting on this for yourself. There was an opportunity for her to become aware of something, and she sort of looked for a moment and then just started laughing. And I said, "Okay, so now let's talk about this situation with your mother." And she would, "Yeah, I guess I could just say I need to make a call." Like, yeah, okay, great. Right. So I don't know exactly what got untangled for her. I can make some educated guesses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just putting up that wall saying, look, you not only have explicit permission to hide stuff, but in this particular case, I want you to not reveal what's going on. Part of that was me occlumencing her mind for her.
Mm.
But the point was that between the two of us, we set up something where she could trust that I was not operating as a hostile telepath.
Yeah. Hmm. That's really cool. Yeah, that's a good example. Thanks.
Because it's very fresh, I've not integrated my thinking about the hostile telepath problem with this thing about uh, shame maybe being closely tied to um, uh, anticipating being judged for having a property.
Mm.
or other people creating a problem for you for having a property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that to me feels juicy and new and very interesting, and like that really captures something important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than like, there's an obvious connection between them, at least obvious to me, which is that um, if you anticipate that people are kind of telepathically, like they might kind of telepathically, in the way that people sort of pick up on vibes or whatever, they kind of telepathically um, might pick up on you having whatever property it is that you expect others are going to create a problem for you if they find out that you have. That is precisely the hostile telepath problem.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the hostile telepath problem allows this particular structure to extend into the realm of your mind.
Right.
There's probably a whole treatise that could be done here on religious guilt and stuff as well, but let's not right now.
God is a hostile telepath.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah. They're always being
But part of the implication is the idea that you can't avoid like detection, like that there is nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like in the hostile telepath article, since I wrote that for less wrong, I reference Newcomb's problem. Sylvia, are you familiar with Newcomb's problem? Okay, yeah. So in there, I reference this thing about like one way to get the intuition for the way that self-deception can arise in a hostile telepath problem. If you imagine that instead of omega, like God is omega in this situation, it's like if you have God as your hostile telepath, it's like, well, you just have to, in fact, actually change. That's the only way to sort that out.
Yeah.
You have to actually one box. But if you imagine that you are dealing with a modification to Newcomb's problem, where where omega is actually an imperfect predictor, and you figure out why. Like for instance, if omega only scans your visualizations, and then creates a model of you based on your visualizations, then what you would want to do if you were confident that you could execute the following strategy you would want to, which is to simulate a one boxer via your visualizations, not just visualizing as a one boxer, but using your visual system like a one boxer would. But what that means is that you are creating basically a sub persona that the rest of you, like your verbal thinking, is aware is a sub persona. Mm-hmm. And that this is a presentation, but that sub persona cannot know it's a sub persona, and because that would be detectable by this modified form of omega.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you imagine that instead of looking at your visualization system, omega is scanning your conscious thought, your conscious subjective experience.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a model for self-deception. It's just that you, quote unquote, you would be the sub-agent that doesn't know it's a sub-agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Egos do be like that.
Yep.
I'm just writing this down. Huh. Well, we have covered so much already.
Yeah. It feels good to get back into jamming about this stuff. I haven't really jammed about this in months.
Did
We
you know about this
could put
specific
this
topic?
video on YouTube in some form.
That's why I
Um,
thought recording it might be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I guess my channel is where the other original spin videos are. I feel like Michael, you did more of the laying out of stuff this time, but that doesn't whatever. That's been true some other times too. It's also good way to plug Sylvia's book. We'll put a link down in the thing. The shame book. What is that? What it's called, or is it something else?
It's called shame.
Yeah. And the Kickstarter, as of whenever this video goes up, is still running and needs more support. So you can go. We didn't. This is not why we made this video, as I'm sure is abundantly clear by now. But I'll go into plug mode because we're on YouTube. No. Anyway. But yeah. Watch me mask my intentions and formulate sub personas who have different. Anyway. Um, yeah, but I don't know. The book does seem really cool, and I do feel really good about like, oh yeah, this conversation also then does just be a thing that gets more attention onto what you're doing. And yeah, feels cool.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's been really generative as well, and for sure the book is going to be influenced by this.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would like to continue, but on the other hand, I'm a bit nervous because today is the first day that I let my cat out and she hasn't come back since the beginning of this call. So I kind
Oh,
of like my mind is starting to like be more out there gradually. So I feel like I should
sure,
go for her. I think it's gonna be fine, but uh yeah, I
sure.
feel like I need to check.
Yeah, yeah. I hope your kitty is okay, and yeah, if your energy has moved on, that sounds great. This has been wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. And I will definitely turn this into something. Um and yeah, I will reflect on it and I will come back to you with it. I'm really excited. I have no idea what's gonna come out of all of this, but for sure there's stuff.
Let me change audio again.
Yeah, my phone's internet just.
This is really weird because you're still on your phone screen. And that really that like I was
We're
what?
taking
Wait.
creating sub personas to whole new levels.
We've gone from creating sub personas to super personas. Oh, that got rid of him.
Anyway, yeah, my phone's internet just died randomly. I don't know why, but since we're wrapping up, I just thought I'd come in here.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed this. This is
Yeah,
This is great.
yeah, this is a pleasure. It's wonderful to see you, Sylvia.
yeah, wonderful to see you too. Okay, have the good rest of your day
Thanks.
Will
and
do. Good luck finding Kitty.
thank you. Bye.